Lewis Hamilton's entire Qatar weekend is now in real danger after shocking internal evidence revealed that Ferrari is battling one of the most serious performance crises of the season. The data shows Hamilton was knocked out in the first qualifying segment with a 1-minute 22.043 lap and nearly 0.8 slower than the cut, while admitting on the radio that the car simply would not go faster. Even worse, the file reveals that Hamilton was running a heavier downforce setup than Charles Leclerc, which destroyed his straight-line speed and exposed the full extent of Ferrari's front-limited weakness on this high-speed circuit. And before we break down how this single day has put Hamilton's weekend at risk, make sure you subscribe right now, because Qatar is uncovering the deepest issues Ferrari has tried to hide all season. The first day in Qatar exposed a severe reality for Lewis Hamilton, as Ferrari confirmed that their encouraging pace in free practice one was nothing more than a deceptive illusion. Hamilton ended sprint qualifying in 18th position with a 1-minute 22.043 lap and fell almost 0.8 short of the cut. The team described this result as a return to the truth because the SF25 cannot perform on front-limited circuits with prolonged high-speed loading. Qatar demands stable rotation through long corners, and Hamilton's car simply never entered the performance window required to compete. Hamilton's setup choice immediately placed him at a disadvantage compared to Leclerc. The report confirms that he selected a rear wing configuration with higher downforce to stabilize the car through the sweeping corners. This approach theoretically improves balance, but dramatically increases drag, which is costly on a track with long straights and continuous acceleration phases. The adjustment failed to resolve the front grip deficiency and instead magnified Ferrari's fundamental aerodynamic weaknesses. As a result, Hamilton faced the worst of both worlds, a stable car that remained slow in every critical metric. The final attempt in sprint qualifying collapsed when Hamilton encountered traffic in the last sector. Leclerc was ahead of him and being slowed by Max Verstappen, creating a chain reaction that destroyed tire preparation and forced Hamilton to complete the most important part of the lap with compromised grip. While the traffic hurt the lap, the deeper issue was that even a perfect sector would not have changed the outcome because the Ferrari lacked the pure pace required to advance. Hamilton's radio comment, "The car will not go faster," summarized the situation with painful accuracy. Free practice one provided additional evidence that Hamilton's weekend was already in jeopardy before qualifying. The internal report states he spent more than 30 minutes without radio communication due to a technical failure which prevented him from giving feedback about tire behavior or corner balance. Ferrari also recorded irregularities in the power-assisted steering system during the high-load sections, which limited Hamilton's ability to control rotation through the fastest corners. These issues combined to leave him poorly prepared for sprint qualifying and without the opportunity to optimize the setup. The technical foundation of the SF25 has become another major obstacle. Ferrari shifted all resources to the 2026 regulations and stopped developing the current car months ago. The result is a package that has fallen behind its rivals and now suffers from chronic understeer at high speed and instability over the Lusail curbs. The track's front-limited nature forces drivers to rely heavily on precision during corner entry, yet the SF25 cannot maintain the necessary front tire energy. This creates an impossible dynamic where the more Hamilton pushes, the more the car resists rotation. Tire management rules have further restricted Hamilton's options. With the FIA imposing a 25-lap limit on each tire set for the race, Ferrari must plan the weekend with strict conservation. This creates a strategic disadvantage because Hamilton cannot rely on additional tire sets to compensate for a poor starting position. Starting 18th in a sprint with no stops leaves him trapped behind slower cars and unable to use strategy to recover ground. The team notes that tire degradation will likely be worse on the Ferrari than on McLaren or Mercedes, which intensifies the challenge. The psychological impact completes the full picture of Hamilton's jeopardized weekend. His public remarks reflect a driver who no longer believes the car can provide meaningful performance. Responding with sarcasm when asked about his expectations and acknowledging that the team is simply slow shows how deeply the struggles have affected his mindset. Ferrari analysts conclude that Hamilton's objective for the sprint is not to score points, but to collect information for the main race and avoid incidents in the first corner, where starting positions this low dramatically increase the risk of contact. The central problem for Lewis Hamilton in Qatar is that the Ferrari SF25 cannot function within the performance window demanded by a circuit dominated by long high-speed corners. Qatar exposes every weakness in a front-limited car because the front axle must carry consistent energy across extended lateral load. The internal analysis shows that Hamilton could not generate the rotation required for Lusail's sweeping entries, which meant he was fighting understeer from the opening seconds of every lap. This persistent loss of front grip cost him time, not in one specific corner, but throughout the entire lap, turning each sector into a cumulative deficit he could not overcome. A second core problem comes from Hamilton's downforce configuration. Ferrari confirmed that he ran a higher rear wing than Charles Leclerc in an effort to give himself greater stability in the fast corners. However, Qatar rewards aerodynamic efficiency rather than high drag setups, and Hamilton's choice left him with a significant straight line speed deficit. The higher downforce did not solve the car's rotation problems and instead made it slower on the straights, where McLaren, Mercedes, and even midfield cars gained time effortlessly. This placed Hamilton in a situation where he was stable but not fast, and stability without speed is a losing combination in any qualifying session. Communication failure during free practice, one created another serious obstacle. Hamilton spent more than 30 minutes without functional radio contact, which meant he could not give real-time feedback on how the car behaved in high-speed transitions or how the tires reacted to long corner sequences. Ferrari was effectively blind while making early balance decisions, and Hamilton entered sprint qualifying with a setup that had not been refined through the normal driver-engineer dialogue. This lack of coordinated information flow magnified every weakness in the car and gave Hamilton no foundation for confidence heading into the most critical laps of the day. Traffic added yet another layer to Hamilton's problems. The report confirms that his final run was compromised by Leclerc ahead of him, who in turn was being slowed by Max Verstappen. This chain of traffic created poor tire preparation before the final sector and forced Hamilton to attack the most crucial part of the lap with tires outside the optimal temperature window. While the blocked sector cost valuable time, Ferrari's own data makes clear that Hamilton lacked enough baseline performance to escape elimination even with a perfect final sector. This means the traffic was frustrating, but the deeper deficit was structural rather than situational. Another substantial problem is that Ferrari has stopped the development of the SF25. The team has shifted entirely to the project for the 2026 regulations, which leaves the current car frozen while other teams continue evolving. Lusail is the type of circuit where development progress becomes highly visible because aerodynamic efficiency and mechanical stability work together to create lap time. The Ferrari lacks the refinement needed to keep pace with rivals, and Hamilton is now suffering the consequences of a car that has been left behind by the natural evolution of the season. Tire behavior represents an additional challenge. Qatar's long high-speed corners demand that the front tires maintain temperature and energy consistently, but the Ferrari struggles to generate that temperature on the front axle. This creates a widening imbalance between front and rear grip, which forces Hamilton into conservative lines that protect the tires but cost substantial lap time. The FIA rule limiting each tire, set to 25 laps, further restricts Ferrari's options because Hamilton cannot simply burn through extra sets to solve temperature problems. He is trapped within a narrow strategic box that offers no simple path to recovery. The final and perhaps most dangerous problem is psychological. Hamilton's comments reveal a driver who no longer believes the car can deliver performance, and this mindset erodes confidence in the moments when absolute commitment is required. When a driver cannot trust the front end of the car at high speed, hesitation becomes inevitable, and hesitation costs tenths. The internal report makes clear that Hamilton is approaching the sprint not with competitive intentions, but with a mindset focused on survival and data gathering. This shift from ambition to damage limitation shows how deeply the Ferrari's limitations are affecting both performance and morale. Ferrari entered Qatar carrying immense engineering strain because the SF25 has reached the limit of its development potential. The internal briefing describes a car with a narrow aerodynamic operating window that collapses when the circuit demands long, uninterrupted periods of lateral load. Lusail exposes this flaw with brutal clarity since its fastest corners require stable rotation and a predictable front end. The engineers were unable to adjust the aerodynamic platform enough to give Hamilton the confidence he needed, which meant the car began each lap outside the balance range necessary to deliver competitive pace. Ride height management created another major engineering headache. Lowering the car would have improved aerodynamic performance, but increased the risk of chassis instability over the aggressive curbs. Raising the car prevented that instability, but caused essential downforce in the very corners where Hamilton already lacked grip. Qatar does not allow a safe middle ground because even a small misalignment in ride height shifts aero balance dramatically. Ferrari's engineers were forced to choose safety over performance, and that decision slowed Hamilton in both the medium speed and high speed phases of the lap. The assisted steering system became a further source of internal pressure. Ferrari's notes confirm Hamilton experienced irregularities during free practice, one that made the steering feel inconsistent during high-load sequences. Sometimes the car felt heavier than expected, and other times sharper, which prevented Hamilton from building a natural rhythm through the long corners. Engineers could only implement partial corrections before sprint qualifying, which meant the inconsistency remained. At a circuit requiring absolute trust in front-end response, this lack of predictability made the car impossible to exploit with precision. Tire behavior intensified the engineering challenge. The rule limiting every tire set to 25 laps for the main race forces teams to handle tires with extreme discipline. Ferrari had reduced flexibility to test experimental solutions because each additional lap could impact the race allocation. Hamilton entered sprint qualifying with a set that warmed up adequately but lost energy mid-corner. The engineers identified a direct link between the front tire temperature drop and the car's refusal to rotate at high speed. However, with the strict tire limit, they had no margin to attempt alternative solutions within the same session. Another key engineering pressure point stems from Ferrari's strategic decision to halt development of the SF25. The engineers are now operating with a static platform that cannot counter the continued progress of teams like McLaren and Mercedes. The internal report makes it clear that although the long-term project for 2026 required resources, the short-term effect is a car that can no longer adapt to circuits with extreme aerodynamic demands. Engineers are trapped in a reactive role managing weaknesses rather than building strengths, which fundamentally limits Hamilton's competitiveness at tracks like Qatar.